You ever walk into a hospital room expecting one kind of pain, then walk out knowing you were never prepared for the truth? Let me back up. My name's Cole. 37. Midwestern guy, modest life. Married to Elaine for 6 years. No fairy tale, but I thought we had something solid. We had Sunday morning pancakes, her laugh in the garden, late-night movies under throw blankets. We had a life. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that while I was building us a future, she and her mother were building something else. Something grotesque. Something I still can't speak of without my stomach turning. The pregnancy came as a surprise. Not an accident, she insisted. A miracle, she called it. I should have known then that word wasn't hers, it was her mother's. Cynthia. My mother-in-law. Botox and wine. The type who smiled with her mouth and cut you down with her eyes. She never liked me. Said I lacked ambition. Said I didn't understand Elaine's lineage. Lineage. That word should have set off every damn alarm in my head. Elaine's real father died when she was a kid. Her mother remarried a man named Warren Bishop, a stoic, quiet man. Ex-military, cold but composed. He raised Elaine from the time she was 6. Warren died 3 years ago. Massive stroke. We all went to the funeral. I gave a eulogy. I shook hands. I watched Elaine cry like a daughter. I watched Cynthia weep like a widow. And I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. Fast forward to 9 months ago. Elaine comes to me glowing like she swallowed the sun. I'm pregnant, she said. Her voice trembling with excitement, or nerves, maybe both. I was stunned. We'd been trying, off and on, for years. We even considered IVF, but never followed through. This felt like a gift. We painted the nursery. We told friends. I held her hair when the morning sickness hit, rubbed her back when her spine ached. I was all in. Like a fool walking into a casino with his retirement fund and a smile. Then came the birth. She had a scheduled C-section. The doctor came out into the waiting room, his face tight like he was holding something back. Sir, he said, what you are about to see may shock you. Please prepare yourself. I laughed. Thought he meant blood, stitches, the usual gore. I'd seen worse in hunting accidents. But when I walked into that room, when I saw my child for the first time, I swear something inside me snapped. He looked wrong. Not in a monstrous way. No, he was healthy. Breathing. Pink. But he was old. I don't mean wrinkled or jaundiced. I mean aged. His eyes were pale and cloudy, like cataracts. His skin had a strange texture, thin, almost translucent. His hair was white. Not light blonde. Not platinum. White. He looked like a newborn with the face of a dead man. And when he opened his mouth and let out his first wail, it wasn't a baby's cry. It was hoarse. It rattled in his throat like sandpaper. My knees buckled. Elaine looked at me, her face glowing, and whispered, Isn't he beautiful? Beautiful? I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could only stare. The doctor pulled me aside. We ran some immediate tests, he said. Genetically speaking, he's human. But there's something unusual. Unusual how? I asked. The doctor hesitated. His telomeres, his genetic aging markers, they're shortened. Drastically. Biologically, he's not a newborn. His cells are old. Like progeria? I asked, desperate for logic. No. Progeria is a disorder. This isn't. This is natural aging. Like someone copied the DNA of a 60-year-old man and implanted it into an embryo. I stood there, silent, my world crumbling. That's when I remembered something. A conversation. An offhand comment from Cynthia during a family dinner, when Elaine was still early in the pregnancy. She had said, Warren was the strongest man I ever knew. It's a shame his legacy died with him. I thought it was grief talking. But now? Now I realized it was a plan. I looked at Elaine, then at our child, the thing I had been led to believe was mine, and saw the truth beginning to take shape. This wasn't a child. It was a resurrection. You ever see your whole life unravel without a single word being spoken? Elaine looked at me, her eyes wide and shimmering, waiting for a response. I could barely look at the child swaddled in her arms. His eyes were open, unfocused, but something about them made my skin crawl. Like he recognized me. Or worse, judged me. I felt sick. The doctor had retreated, giving us space. What he really meant was he didn't want to deal with whatever explosion he knew was coming. Cole, Elaine said gently, isn't he perfect? My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I wanted to ask who he was. Not what. Not how. Who. Because deep down, I already knew. My voice finally broke through the fog. Did you do something? Elaine blinked, a perfect performance of confusion. What do you mean? The pregnancy. The embryo. Did you? Was this IVF? Or something else? She looked down at the baby. Her fingers traced his cheek. The same cheek Warren Bishop used to have a deep scar on, only faintly visible now, almost like a birthmark. I wanted him to be strong, she said quietly. I wanted him to be protected. My spine stiffened. So you used another man's DNA? She hesitated. And then she nodded. But it's not what you think. Then explain it to me, I said, louder than I meant to. Explain why I just met a baby with the eyes of a corpse. Her eyes welled with tears, but I'd seen her cry before. I wasn't falling for it. Mom said we could do it, she whispered. There's a clinic. In Vienna. They have a vault. Stored samples. Frozen long before Warren died. She said it was his dying wish. I felt like someone had sucker punched me in the throat. So you took his DNA, I said slowly, each word like broken glass in my mouth, and created a child. Not just someone else's child. Your stepfather's. He wasn't blood, she snapped, suddenly defensive. He raised me. He protected me. He taught me everything I know. This was the way to honor him. Honor him, I whispered. You call this honoring him? The baby stirred in her arms and made that dry, rasping sound again. My heart thundered against my ribs. This wasn't just betrayal. This was madness. I stepped back, needing distance. You kept this from me. For 9 months, you carried a child that wasn't mine. You lied to me. No, she said. I never said he was yours. You just assumed. And I let you. My vision blurred. It wasn't just Elaine in that bed. It was Cynthia too, pulling the strings, whispering in her ear, infecting her with that generational sickness that runs deeper than blood. And I had walked right into it. Married into it. Trusted it. I left the room. Walked past the nurses. Past the families smiling and holding balloons. Past a man crying tears of joy at the sight of his newborn daughter. I walked until I found an empty hallway, leaned against the wall, and stared at the floor. My hands were shaking. My marriage was a lie. My child wasn't mine. And the man he belonged to wasn't even alive anymore. Or so I thought. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel, stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every moment of the past year in my head. The fertility consultations. The sudden change in her schedule. The trip to see an old friend in Austria. Vienna. That's where it happened. That's where they did it. I called my friend Marcus, an IT consultant who owed me more than a few favors, and told him to start digging. On what? He asked. A clinic. Vienna. Fertility. Anything that looks like it's hiding something under the surface. What exactly am I looking for? I paused. Then I said the words like poison. My wife brought someone back from the dead. I want to know who helped her. Marcus didn't ask follow-up questions. He knew me well enough to understand when my voice dropped like that, when the ice set in. I wasn't in the mood for theories or sympathy. I wanted facts. Paper trails. Names. Still, even he couldn't resist one final jab before he hung up. You always did marry up, Cole. But I never guessed you married out of your species. He laughed. I didn't. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed, the hum of the mini fridge buzzing in my ears, and stared at the text Elaine had sent me 3 hours ago. Where are you? He needs his father. I stared at that last word, father. The gall. The sheer, grotesque irony. It was like watching someone set fire to your house, and then asking why you're cold. The next morning, Marcus called me back. Got something, he said. Ever hear of the Edelweiss Institute? No. Private genetic research firm. Based in Austria. Ultra-clinical branding, squeaky clean website, and no digital footprint prior to 2004. That's your first red flag. And the second? They don't list patients. But I found an archived interview with their founder, Dr. Conrad Weiss, retired military bioengineer. The article mentioned a proprietary storage facility, legacy genome banking they called it, for select clients. Clients like who? He hesitated. One of them was Warren Bishop. The room spun. That doesn't make sense, I said. He died 3 years ago. Try 20. He submitted genetic material in the early 2000s, classified military use, but Weiss was already moonlighting in private biotech. Guess who referred him? Don't say it. Cynthia Redgrave Bishop. She was listed as a private donor and investor. I hung up without another word. The walls were closing in. Every corner of my life. The woman I shared my bed with, the child I thought was mine, even the man who'd been buried with full military honors, was part of some sick experiment. And at the center of it all, Cynthia, the mastermind, the architect. The queen spider sitting at the center of the web, feeding it with secrets and cash. I drove home. I wasn't ready to talk to Elaine, not yet. But I had to see the baby again. I had to know if what I saw was real or just some sleep-deprived hallucination. She wasn't home. The lights were off. The baby's car seat was missing. I checked the security camera feed from my phone. Nothing. Wiped clean. That's when I knew. She was hiding. Not from me, but from what came next. Because whatever this was, it was never meant to last. You don't play God and expect to live quietly in the suburbs. I went to Cynthia's house. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. Wine in hand. Diamonds on her ears. A fox draped in pearls. "Cole," she purred. "I was wondering when you'd finally grow a backbone." "I want answers," I said. "Now." She turned, unfazed, and strolled into her living room. "Then come in. No need to be theatrical. You always did take things so personally." I followed her into a house that reeked of lavender and control. "Let's dispense with the usual theatrics, shall we?" she said, swirling her wine. "You feel betrayed. Understandable. But you were never the point, dear. You were a placeholder. A vessel. We needed someone stable, quiet, docile. Elaine chose you. I approved. You approved," I said, my voice cracking. "Of course. You had no debt, no criminal record, no ambition. Safe. And the baby?" Cynthia smiled. "The baby is legacy. Warren was the strongest man I ever knew. And in this world, strength must be preserved." Elaine understood that. She wanted to carry that strength forward. "You mean she wanted to carry him?" "No, Cole. We didn't resurrect Warren. We recreated his foundation. Think of it like a blueprint. Same bones. New structure. But make no mistake, this child is elite. Born from the finest genetic stock. And if you had any spine at all, you'd be proud to be near him." I don't know what scared me more, the words or the way she said them. Like this was all inevitable. Like I was the last idiot in the room to catch on. She sipped her wine and added casually, "Oh, and before you think of getting clever with lawyers or courts, just remember, there is no biological record tying you to the child. You have no rights." "Then what am I supposed to do?" I asked, genuinely hollow now. Cynthia set her glass down and leaned in close. "You disappear, Cole. You take your pitiful pride and you vanish. Let the future inherit itself." I left that house without a word. But something had shifted. I wasn't disappearing. Not yet. They wanted me erased? Forgotten? Buried beneath the polished marble of their twisted bloodline? Good. Because that's when I do my best work. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the hotel room, lights off, staring at the ceiling like it owed me an explanation. But ceilings don't talk. And neither do wives who vanish with the product of their family's experiment. Because that's what he was now. Not a son. Not even a child. He was a product. Manufactured. Curated. Designed to replace something that was already dead. But not me. No, I was still very much alive. And that was inconvenient for them. I thought back to what Cynthia said, how I had no rights, no biological ties. She wasn't wrong. On paper, I was a ghost. A man whose last remaining evidence of love had been overwritten in a lab freezer and scrubbed clean with Austrian bleach. But she underestimated me. That was her first mistake. I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the loud, messy way. That phase passed in the hospital hallway. What replaced it was colder. Sharper. Surgical. I started making a list. First, locate Elaine. Second, obtain documentation from Edelweiss. Third, find leverage. It's amazing what you can do when no one expects you to do anything at all. Elaine had a weakness. Two, actually. Her old laptop. She used it for fertility forums and international message boards when she didn't want me snooping through her main devices. Her need to feel in control. She always left digital breadcrumbs, thinking no one could read them but her. By sunrise, I was parked outside our house. Waited for the nanny. Yes, they hired a nanny to take out the trash. Slipped inside like smoke. The laptop was where I thought it would be. Hidden in plain sight, under the ottoman, next to her neglected yoga mat. The login? Easy. Her old college crush's birthday. Predictable. What I found in that hard drive chilled me. Encrypted emails between Elaine and a Dr. F. Bergman, lead geneticist at the Edelweiss Institute. Not just emails, video calls, transcripts, payment records. An entire dossier. She called the embryo project W. W, as in Warren. There were notes from the early stages, how they extracted the DNA, built a synthetic zygote, and implanted it in Elaine after a conditioning phase. She had flown to Vienna under the name Elaine Bishop, her mother's maiden name. Everything was under control, except one thing. Me. They discussed how to manage my involvement. Husband must believe child is biologically his, one line read. Avoid paternity tests. Employ emotional anchoring. Encourage bonding during pregnancy. Psychological buy-in is essential. My fists clenched so hard my nails broke skin. They weren't just lying to me. They were managing me, like a variable in a clinical trial. I copied the entire folder to an encrypted drive. Then I found something else, a contact number saved under initials, RL. I traced the number. It belonged to Ronan Langley, a high-profile attorney in New York. Corporate defense. Known for NDAs, hush settlements, and erasing problems that don't play nice. So that's what I was now. A problem. Perfect. I left before anyone noticed. Back at the hotel, I called Marcus. I've got files, I said. Proof. Genetic tampering. Financial transactions. Plans to cut me out of the picture. You sure you want to play this game, Cole? He asked. They've got money. Power. Lawyers. You've got rage and a thumb drive. I smirked. Yeah, I said. But I also have nothing left to lose. That night, I did something unexpected. I showed up at my old college buddy's house, Gavin. Ex-military intelligence. We hadn't talked in years, but he owed me for something I never cashed in on. Now is the time. Need a favor, I told him. Off the record. No questions asked. Gavin looked at the bags under my eyes and the dried blood on my knuckles and didn't say a word. Just opened the door and poured me a drink. Over the next few hours, I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. Not once. When I finished, he looked me in the eye and said, "You're not crazy, but what you're up against. It's the kind of thing that eats normal men alive." "I'm not normal anymore," I replied. He leaned forward. Gavin always said, the best kind of revenge doesn't look like revenge. He wasn't wrong. People like Cynthia, people who operate in shadows behind manicured smiles, don't panic when you yell or throw things. They don't flinch at threats. They've been preparing for that since their first tennis lesson at age 6. No, they unravel when you take control without ever raising your voice. So that's what I started doing. Step 1. Let them think I was broken. I went dark. No calls. No texts. No posts. Just gone. I knew Elaine was waiting for the explosion, the confrontation, the righteous meltdown. When it didn't come, it would get under her skin, make her restless, anxious. Because people like her, they need to feel smarter than the fallout. They need to see the mess they created and feel above it. So I became silent, a black hole. And in that silence, I watched. Gavin got to work immediately. With his help, we cracked into Cynthia's private cloud storage, a fortress of legal records, bank transactions, and enough digital skeletons to bury a small country. We found the payoff trail from Cynthia to Edelweiss. She'd funded the lab's U.S. expansion in exchange for what they called legacy sequencing rights. There were memos describing the embryo as a foundational specimen for future experiments. It wasn't just about bringing back Warren. He was the template. And Elaine? She was the willing surrogate in more ways than one. Not just for a child, but for an entire genetic dynasty Cynthia was trying to engineer. That's when it hit me. They never intended for this to be a one-time event. There were plans for more. More children. More Warrens. More genetically perfect heirs. Project W wasn't an anomaly. It was phase 1. My stomach twisted. I pictured my home, my kitchen, the nursery I painted with my own hands. And I realized I'd been living in a lab the entire time. I didn't just need to destroy the project. I needed to make sure no one ever trusted them again. Step 2. Plant the mine. We packaged everything: emails, video transcripts, legal contracts, genetic reports, and created a digital folder titled Bishop Resurrection Protocol. Then we sent it anonymously to 5 carefully chosen targets. A journalist at a biotech ethics watchdog group, a junior FDA investigator known for going rogue, a child advocacy attorney who'd been vocal about unauthorized medical experiments, a European journalist with deep ties to Austrian regulatory offices, and my personal favorite, Ronan Langley's own legal partner, who'd just been passed over for promotion. Betrayal always festers better when it's personal. Then I waited. 2 days passed. Nothing. Then boom. The journalist published a teaser piece titled The Legacy Project? Are Wealthy Families Creating Children from the Dead? It didn't name names, yet, but it referenced an elite East Coast family, a military donor, and an unregulated fertility experiment conducted overseas. And just like that, the wolves started sniffing around. Cynthia responded exactly how I hoped. She filed a private lawsuit against John Doe for breach of digital security. The suit made headlines, because nothing draws attention like someone rich trying to shut someone up. Elaine called me that night. Her voice trembled. First time I'd heard that since our wedding. "Cole, what are you doing?" "I'm not doing anything," I said calmly. "I'm just watching the truth come out. Feels good, honestly. You should try it sometime. You're going to destroy everything." I smiled. "No, you already did. I'm just sweeping up the ashes." Silence. Then she said something I'll never forget. "He's your son whether you like it or not." "No, Elaine," I said. "He's Warren's science project. And your inheritance incubator. I was just the idiot who bought the crib." She hung up. I didn't call back. I sat there in Gavin's spare bedroom, staring at the wall, listening to the distant hum of a war machine I'd just pulled the pin on. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. You can only control the narrative if no one else is telling it. Cynthia had lived by that rule for decades. She curated everything. Her home, her image, her daughter, even the man her daughter married. But what she never prepared for was someone who didn't care about the rules at all. Me. The lawsuit she filed was meant to scare off the press. But all it did was pour gasoline on the fire. Because when you claim someone hacked your system, you're admitting there's something worth hiding. Within a week, the Legacy Project was the centerpiece of every ethics panel on cable news. Headlines screamed across the screen. Billionaire family accused of creating designer baby with dead stepfather's DNA. Child born from deceased man's genome sparks ethical firestorm. Is the Edelweiss Institute operating outside international fertility laws? They didn't have to say our names yet, but the vultures were circling. Cynthia was called to suspend all philanthropic involvement with several prestigious organizations. Her charity board in Manhattan issued a quiet but firm statement of reassessment. She started bleeding influence. Elaine, meanwhile, tried to rally. She emailed me. "Please, for the love of God, stop this. I will talk to whoever you want. We'll fix this. Just think about him. Think about our son." But that word, our, had long since lost its meaning. I didn't respond. Gavin and I watched as Edelweiss scrambled. The Austrian regulatory agencies launched an investigation. Their founder, Dr. Konrad Weiss, disappeared from public view. Their board of directors denied knowledge, but leaked documents proved otherwise. And that's when I made my move. I gave an interview. Anonymously. Shadowed. Voice disguised. But the story? It was crystal clear. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. I told them what happened in that hospital room. I told them how the child had the biological markers of a man 3 times his age. I told them how his mother had traveled to Austria under a false name. How I'd been deceived. Managed. Handled. And I ended the interview with one sentence that made it into every headline. I didn't lose a child. I lost my entire identity in the name of someone else's ambition. The court of public opinion didn't just turn on Edelweiss, it turned on Cynthia. People don't fear monsters as much as they hate the ones who build them. And then came the real blow. Marcus called with news I hadn't expected. "I got a ping from an encrypted server in Geneva," he said. "Guess who it belongs to?" "Don't make me guess." "Elaine. She's transferring funds out of U.S. accounts. Offshore. Quiet. Fast." I felt a chill creep into my spine. "She's running?" "Looks like it. And get this, she's taking the kid." "What about Cynthia?" "Already gone. They both left within the last 48 hours. Private jet, registered under one of Cynthia's shell core." I stared at the screen, heart pounding, but not from panic. From something else. Because while they were packing bags and running for cover, I was already 10 steps ahead. "Let them go," I said. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. "Let them feel safe again. Let them think they outran it. Because the thing about shadows is, just when you think you've escaped them, they follow you across borders." Elaine always wanted a life of glamour. Not just the look of it, but the immunity that comes with wealth. The ability to make messes and vanish behind white curtains and private jets, leaving the rest of us to clean up the wreckage. Now she had it. Geneva, a city where money whispers and scandals politely disappear behind numbered bank accounts. The perfect place to hide a genetically reanimated heir and the woman who betrayed every law of nature to birth him. She thought she was safe. What she didn't know was, I'd already been there once. 3 years ago, long before this nightmare, I'd helped an old friend on a job near Lausanne, installing secure network lines for a fintech firm. I knew the layout, the banks, the back doors, and most importantly, I knew people. People who knew how to find things that didn't want to be found. Gavin made a few calls. I made a few payments. Within 72 hours, we had her. Elaine Bishop Redgrave, registered under an alias, staying in an upscale chalet outside Vevey, paid for by a family trust labeled Solstice Holdings. And with her, the child. No name listed. Only initials, WB. Warren. Always Warren. They were lying low, surrounded by a private security firm with zero questions and high-caliber toys. Cynthia was rumored to be holed up in Monaco, pulling strings from a penthouse and pretending none of this was happening. Good. Let her pretend. Because now it was time for me to rewrite the story. Step 1. Cut off the money. Gavin traced the offshore funnel and discovered something beautiful. Cynthia, for all her arrogance, had one weakness: control. She never let go of the reins, which meant even in exile, she was funding everything herself. So we leaked a single document. 1. A 2006 internal memo from Edelweiss, outlining Cynthia's early investment. Buried inside was a line about unauthorized procurement of military donor DNA. That got the Department of Defense's attention. See, Warren wasn't just some ex-soldier. He was part of a classified research program during his final years, which meant anything pulled from his body, even posthumously, fell under federal protection. And suddenly, Cynthia's little pet project wasn't just unethical, it was treasonous. Bank accounts froze overnight. Assets seized. Her name hit Interpol's radar, not for the child, but for trafficking military-grade genetic material across borders. Poetic, really. Elaine's money dried up. Her guard scattered. And she panicked. She tried calling me again. Blocked. Then came the email. Please, we didn't mean for it to go this far. He's sick, Cole. Something's wrong. We need help. I stared at that sentence. He's sick. I read it again. My heart didn't break. It calcified. Because the moment they broke the rules of nature, they built a time bomb. It was never going to be a child. It was going to be a ticking biological question mark. And now, it was unraveling. I replied with one line. Call Edelweiss. I'm just the placeholder, remember? Then I shut the laptop. Let her sit in that for a while. That night, Gavin looked over at me across the hotel bar. You could stop now, he said. You've won. The project's dead. Cynthia's under investigation. Elaine's trapped in a foreign country with no money and a fading clone. I sipped my whiskey. Not yet, I said. There's still one thing left. What's that? I looked him dead in the eye. I want to be forgotten. You can't start over when your name still walks around in someone else's mouth. I wasn't just Cole anymore. I was that husband. The placeholder. The genetic red herring. The man in a tragic sci-fi horror story no one would stop dissecting. The headlines were dying down, sure, but the scars were still bleeding. People were speculating about who I was, piecing together timelines, trying to connect the dots between me and the nightmare with a face like Warren Bishop. So I did what any sane man would do when the system tries to write your obituary before you're dead. I vanished. Not ran. Not hid. I disappeared. Gavin called it going grayscale. It wasn't just about moving. It was about deleting. Dismantling. Step 1. Burn the identifiers. I sold my car under an alias. Canceled every credit card. Transferred my last bits of cash into an untraceable wallet that didn't require a name. Just a key phrase I had burned into my memory. Step 2. Kill the paper trail. The house was sold. Quietly. To a shell buyer Gavin knew through a buddy in real estate. No forwarding address. No utility links. No taxes filed. Even my birth certificate was compromised. I paid someone very good, to initiate a quiet identity merge into a dead man's file. Someone born in Indiana. Died overseas. No surviving relatives. Now, Cole Whitaker Garrison never existed. Step 3. Exit the map. I took a flight out of the country on a temporary passport. I won't say where I landed. Doesn't matter. What matters is that the first thing I did when I stepped off that plane was breathe air that had never touched the Bishop Redgrave name. Air that didn't care who Warren was. Air that didn't carry the scent of betrayal and medical rot. I was gone. And in my place? Nothing. Let them search. Let them speculate. Let Cynthia burn through her legal fund trying to chase ghosts. Let Elaine sit in that cold foreign chalet with a child that was never meant to live long enough to ruin her. Let them all realize what I'd known from the beginning. This story was never about me. I was just the man standing in the frame when the camera started rolling. But when the curtain fell, I didn't take a bow. I left the stage empty. Because that's what haunts people like them the most, not revenge, not courtrooms, not consequences. Silence. I watched the world from afar. News broke 6 months later. Mystery heiress found dead in Geneva apartment. Possible overdose. Child with rare genetic disorder hospitalized in critical condition. Authorities investigate connection to controversial Edelweiss project. Elaine was gone. I didn't feel joy. Not sorrow either. Just the same numb sense of inevitability I'd carried since the moment the doctor said, "Prepare yourself." They prepared that child for legacy. They gave him Warren's strength, Warren's DNA. But they forgot to account for Warren's expiration date. The genes didn't lie. His cells aged faster than his heartbeat could keep up. And the miracle? It unraveled like it always does when people try to cheat nature. Cynthia? Still alive. Last I heard, under house arrest somewhere in the Alps, hiding behind silk curtains and old money lawyers. But she's not powerful anymore. She's not feared. She's just remembered. And not kindly. As for me, I have no name now. No wife. No child. No debts. Just a quiet life in a place where no one asks questions and everyone minds their own scars. And that suits me just fine. It had been a year. 12 months since I'd erased myself. 12 months since the headlines faded and the Bishop Redgrave name became just another rich family implosion the media chewed up and spat out. And me? I lived quiet. A small village. Mediterranean coast. Locals who didn't care where you were from. Only that you paid in cash and didn't ask for anything not on the menu. I had a room above a repair shop, a job fixing diesel engines, and a battered notebook I wrote in when sleep wouldn't come. Most days, I felt like I'd actually escaped. But that's the thing about ghosts, they don't follow you with chains or wails. They whisper. And one afternoon, as I sat watching the sea, a man sat down next to me and said a name I hadn't heard spoken in nearly a year. Warren. I didn't look at him right away. My blood froze, but my face stayed still. "You must have the wrong guy," I said. The man smiled. Not cruelly. Not smugly. Just knowingly. "Don't worry," he said. "I'm not here to drag you back. I'm here to give you something." He slid a small envelope onto the bench between us. Plain. No seal. No stamp. "Who sent you?" I asked, I still forward. "Doesn't matter," he said. "But I think you'll want to see what's inside." He stood, gave me a polite nod, and walked off like we'd just exchanged fishing tips. Gone within seconds. I stared at the envelope. For a long time. Then I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. A boy, maybe 4 years old, standing in front of a fountain in what looked like southern France. He had dark eyes, pale skin, and white hair. But not the sickly kind. This was full, vibrant, alive. On the back of the photo, one word. Survived. My breath caught. The child. Warren's clone. The experiment. He was alive. Which was impossible. The doctor had said his cells were degenerating, that he'd never live to see childhood, that the telomeres, those little tips at the end of DNA strands, were eroding faster than his heart could keep up. But there he was, alive, walking, smiling. I felt something stir in my chest I hadn't felt in years, rage. Not because he was alive, but because someone hit him again. Because someone thought I deserved one more twist of the knife after I'd buried everything. I turned the photo over, stared at the boy again. It wasn't Warren. Not really. It was something else. Something new. And suddenly, I realized what the photo wasn't saying. Elaine didn't die of an overdose. She ran. Again. And whoever sent me this photo? They wanted me to know the project wasn't dead. It had just evolved. Which meant the game wasn't over. It had restarted. The boy shouldn't have been alive. The woman should have been dead. And I should have been forgotten. But that photograph, delivered like a ghost handshake, said otherwise. Survived. No signature. No address. No return path. Just a new mystery dressed in the same old skin. The kid in the picture had Warren's features, but none of the decay I remembered from that hospital room. No glassy cataract eyes. No translucent skin. No ancient soul staring through newborn eyes. Just a child. Almost normal. I stared at the image for hours. Until the sun dipped below the coast and the fishermen packed up without a word. Until the street lights flickered on and I realized I hadn't moved in hours. Then I did the one thing I promised myself I never would. I called Gavin. He answered on the first ring. "Didn't expect to hear from you again." I need to know if Edelweiss is still operating. There was a long pause. I thought we buried that place. Apparently not deep enough. I sent him a photo of the envelope. Just the front, not the kid. You recognize that handwriting? I asked. Gavin didn't respond. I knew what that meant. He was already scanning, tracing the postmark, the ink, the paper fibers. That's why I called him. Gavin didn't react. He processed. 30 minutes later, he called back. Not Edelweiss, he said. Not officially. But someone rebranded. Same founders. Different name. What's it called now? He hesitated. The Halcyon Initiative. I laughed. Bitterly. Of course. Nothing says ethically bankrupt genetics lab like a name that sounds like a wellness retreat. Gavin continued. They set up in South America, outside regulatory zones, cloaked under a biotech startup specializing in anti-aging and prenatal enhancement therapies. Funded by a familiar name. My blood turned ice. Don't say it. Solstice Holdings. Elaine's money. She never overdosed. She hid. She restarted the program. The clone. No, the boy had survived. Or maybe he hadn't. Maybe this was a new version. One that didn't degrade. One that didn't age like an obituary on fast forward. Which meant Project W had evolved. And they were still using Warren's DNA. But why send the photo to me? Why now? I turned it over again, rereading that single word. Survived. It wasn't just a message. It was a challenge. Elaine knew I was alive. Knew I had vanished. And this was her way of calling me back to the table. A white-gloved slap across the face. She wasn't done. She still wanted control. Of me. Of the story. Of everything. But what she didn't know. I wasn't the same man who walked into that hospital room. She broke him. What came out the other side? Something colder. There's a quiet rage that comes when you realize evil didn't die. It just rebranded. The Halcyon Initiative. Sounded like a yoga retreat for billionaires. But beneath the polished name and clean web design, Gavin traced infrastructure that led to something far more sinister. Hidden labs. Satellite outposts. Biometric access points. A foundation built on the bones of Edelweiss and bankrolled by Elaine's Phantom Trust, Solstice Holdings. And the kicker? They were advertising prenatal enhancement services to the ultra-elite, discreet, invitation-only consultations in places most people couldn't pronounce without a passport and a fortune. They didn't just want to preserve Warren's line. They were now selling it. And that kid in the photo? He wasn't the last. He was the prototype. I booked a flight to Paraguay under a false name. A favor from Gavin. A passport that said I was a Canadian agricultural consultant, complete with a full dossier in case anyone asked questions. They wouldn't. Not down here. Not where money moved faster than morality. The facility was buried just outside Ciudad del Este, surrounded by jungle and rumors. Officially, it was a biomedical research campus. Unofficially, it didn't exist. Getting in wouldn't be easy. But I didn't need to get in. Not yet. I needed to get close. I set up shop at a nearby hostel disguised as a sustainability lodge. Mosquito nets, solar panels, and European travelers with wide eyes and loose lips. The kind of place that passed for paradise to anyone who'd never smelled sweat and rot at the same time. I started asking around. Quietly. At first, no one bit. Then a bartender named Emile, wiry, eyes too old for his face, pulled me aside one night. "You're not a doctor," he said in accented English. Never said I was. "You're not a tourist, either." I didn't reply. He studied me. Tapped a cigarette out of a crushed pack. Lit it. My cousin worked at Halcyon. 2 weeks. Cleaning staff. They paid her triple the going rate. Then she vanished. Vanished how? Just gone. No notice. No goodbyes. No funeral. He exhaled smoke and passed me a flash drive wrapped in a plastic napkin. She left this with me. Said if something happened, give it to someone who looks like they want answers more than money. You think that's me? He nodded once. You have the eyes. Back in my room, I opened the flash drive. Encrypted. Sloppy, but secure enough to keep out amateurs. Gavin cracked it remotely in under 10 minutes. And what we found? Video files. Surveillance footage. Internal security logs. Research notes. But one clip made my hands go numb. A group of children, maybe 6, maybe 7, playing in a sealed glass enclosure. Each of them looked eerily similar. Same eyes. Same posture. Same bone structure. All variations of Warren. Each with minor tweaks in height, eye color, hair texture. They weren't just replicating him. They were iterating him. Warren 2.0. 3.0, 4.0. One of them turned to the camera, stared dead into the lens, and smiled. Not a child's smile. A knowing smile. Like he'd done this before. Like he remembered. I shut the laptop and sat there in silence. My hands shaking, not with fear, but with something deeper. Resolve. I had tried to disappear. I had tried to walk away. I gave them every chance to fade, to rot, to die quietly in the shame they earned. But they refused. They expanded. So now? Now it was war. No courts. No press. No interviews. Just me. And every last secret they buried in that jungle. There's a certain sound the jungle makes when it's holding its breath. That night, standing outside the perimeter of the Halcyon compound, I heard it. Crickets paused mid-chirp. Leaves rustled without wind. And somewhere beyond the trees, children were laughing, only it wasn't the laughter that bothered me. It was how uniform it sounded. Like they were practicing it. I waited until 2 a.m. That's when shift change happened. Gavin had decrypted the employee logs from the drive Emil gave me. Cameras rotated every 45 seconds. 3 blind spots. 1 motion sensor disabled on maintenance protocol. I'd seen tighter setups on military bases, but Halcyon wasn't hiding from invaders. They were hiding from exposure. My stolen ID badge got me past the outer checkpoint, thanks to a clone signal buried in a janitor's RFID tag. From there, it was all timing and nerves. I crept past greenhouse corridors and surgical labs. No alarms. No guards. Then I saw it. Section Delta. A curved hallway with chrome walls and soft blue lighting. No windows. Just reinforced doors every 15 feet, each with a keypad and a placard. Most had labels like Trial Group B or Cognitive Dev 05. But the last one simply read, WB-01, Legacy Core. My blood went cold. Warren Bishop, version 1. The original. He wasn't dead. The door wasn't locked. It hissed open like something from a dream you never wake from. Inside, the room was quiet. Too quiet. Not sterile like a hospital, but curated, like a museum display of childhood. A twin bed, small bookshelf, wooden toys arranged with surgical precision. Not one out of place. And sitting in the center, legs crossed, was him. He looked 7, maybe 8. Pale skin, white hair, gray eyes with no childlike flicker. He looked up before I could say anything. You took a long time, he said. His voice was soft, controlled. I didn't respond, just stared. He tilted his head. I remember your face. From before. Before. I asked. The hospital. You looked scared. I stepped inside. You were a baby. Newborns don't remember things. He smiled. I'm not a newborn. I never was. He stood slowly. No fear, no hesitation. He walked like someone twice his size. Like someone used to being obeyed. They call me Warren, but I prefer Will. Will. A new name. A new version of the same old God complex. I should have felt rage. But what I felt, staring at him, was worse. Pity. Because whatever he was, child, clone, relic, he hadn't asked for any of it. He was a vessel poured full of someone else's legacy and told to perform. And yet, he liked it. They made others, he said, almost proudly. But I was the first. I still know the most. The others, I said. They like you. They try to, he replied. But they're not as strong. They don't remember like I do. I felt bile rise in my throat. How many? 32. My knees nearly gave. 32. Warren wasn't a fluke. He was a blueprint, and Halcyon had been printing copies. Elaine, I whispered. She's still alive, isn't she? Will nodded. She visits. But not often. She says she can't stand the guilt. I think that's funny. Why feel guilt for perfection? He smiled again. That same damn smile from the photo. And I knew then, whatever part of Elaine had been human, it had died long before she ever stepped into that lab. I turned to leave. I didn't know what came next, only that I couldn't walk out of there with just silence. But then Will said something that froze me. She left a message for you. I turned back. What kind of message? He walked to the bookshelf, pulled out a hollowed-out copy of Frankenstein. Inside, a flash drive. She said if you ever came here, to give you this. I took it. What is it? Will shrugged. She said it's the only thing she ever hid from Cynthia. Then he walked back to his bed, sat down, and as the door closed behind me, I heard him say, "Tell her I'm not broken anymore." Back in my room, sweat-soaked, paranoid, adrenaline scraping the back of my throat, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. No label. No encryption. Elaine didn't hide it behind firewalls or digital traps. She wanted me to find it. The screen blinked once, then opened a single folder. For Cole, if I don't make it. I froze. Whatever this was, she'd recorded it with the full understanding that she might not survive what she'd done. And yet, she hadn't left it for Cynthia, or Will, or even her own son. She left it for me. I clicked. The video flickered on. Elaine appeared on screen, pale, eyes hollow, thinner than I remembered. No makeup. No pretense. Just a woman standing at the edge of her own ruin. Cole, she said. Her voice was quiet. No performance. Just truth. If you're watching this, then I'm either dead or worse. And you're still out there. Somehow, she looked away for a second, collected herself. I don't expect you to forgive me. God knows you shouldn't. But you need to know something. What I did, it didn't go the way they planned. Not completely. She reached behind her, held up a file. Real paper, thick and yellowed. She flipped it open. I lied to Cynthia. About the embryo. About the sequencing. She thinks Will is the original. He's not. I sat up. He's half. Half Warren. Half you. My heart stopped. Elaine continued. After Vienna, I panicked. I couldn't go through with it. Not with Warren's full sequence. It felt wrong. All of it. So I altered the donor records. Used your sample from the initial IVF cycle. You remember that night? When I said the lab lost the file. They didn't. She smiled. Sadly, I just didn't want you to know what I was doing. Not until I was sure it would work. I pressed pause. I couldn't breathe. Will was mine. Half mine. A hybrid. Some twisted blend of two men. One living, one buried, one betrayed. I pressed play again. He doesn't know, she said. No one does. Not even Cynthia. If they found out, if she found out, he'd be destroyed and rebuilt in a heartbeat. Just like the others. That's what this was always about. Control. Replacement. Legacy. She leaned in close to the camera. But Will's different. He's more than they realize. And he needs someone who isn't trying to use him. Tears welled in her eyes. The real kind. Not the crocodile variety I'd seen in courtrooms and interviews. I know I don't deserve your help. Or your love. Or your silence. But if you're out there, and you still have anything left inside you. She paused. Save him. Or stop him. I don't know which. Then the screen went black. I sat in the dark for a long time. Will wasn't just some synthetic ghost in Warren's shell. He was mine. In some microscopic, horrific twist of fate, Elaine had used my DNA without my consent, but also, somehow, against the monster who taught her how. And now, that boy behind the glass. He wasn't a clone. He was a weapon, designed by one woman, conceived by another, raised by no one. And if he ever found out what he really was, he wouldn't stop at Halcyon. He'd burn the world that created him. I didn't sleep. Not after that. Not after hearing her voice one last time. Not after realizing the boy I thought was an echo of a dead man was also part me. I stared at that black screen long after the video ended, the flicker of the laptop painting the walls in ghost light. My own reflection in the screen didn't blink. It didn't move. It didn't look like someone who had options anymore. It looked like someone who'd run out of time. Gavin called it sunrise. You still breathing? Barely. I traced Solstice Holdings, he said. They're liquidating. Quietly. Someone's pulling the plug. Cynthia? Doubt it. She's still hiding behind diplomatic immunity in Monaco. If she was shutting things down, it'd be loud, scorched earth style. This is surgical. Elaine. Even from exile, she was still one step ahead of her mother. But not of me. Not anymore. I told Gavin everything. The video, the hybrid DNA, the boy's true origin. Silence on the line. For once, even he didn't have a plan. You think Will knows? He asked. No, I said. But if he finds out, if someone tells him who he really is, he becomes the perfect storm. He becomes something worse. I returned to the compound that night. Same path. Same hole in the fence. Same blind spot in the camera. Only this time, I wasn't there to spy. I was there to finish it. Will's room hadn't changed. He was asleep when I entered, curled up like a real child for once. Peaceful. Innocent. In the way only the unaware can be. I sat across from him. Waited. He woke without alarm, blinking slowly, adjusting to the dim light. You came back. I did. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. Did you watch it? What she left? Yes. He nodded, like he already knew the answer. Like he felt it. She said you were strong, he murmured. Not smart like Warren, but strong in ways that matter. You talk about him like he's someone else. He is someone else. Then he looked at me, and there it was. Recognition. Like he knew something without knowing how. You're different from them, he said. You're not afraid of what I am. No, I said. I'm afraid of what they'll turn you into. We sat in silence. Then I asked, do you want to leave? He blinked, hesitated. I don't know, he said. Do you trust them? Another pause. No. That was enough. I stood. We go now? We don't come back. He reached for my hand. Are you my dad? He asked. Eyes soft, voice barely a whisper. And I said the only thing that mattered. I'm the one they didn't plan for. We left through the jungle just before dawn. No alarms. No sirens. Just a quiet shadow and a boy holding the hand of the man they'd tried to erase. By the time anyone realized he was missing, we were gone. No digital trail. No DNA markers. Just two ghosts. One born, one made, slipping off the map.